welcome. Today I am delighted to be talking to my old colleague and friend, Matthew Ball. Matthew has been copywriter, creative director, ECD, CCO, CEO, founder, and owner of numerous agencies. He's been named as number 5 in the top 10 global CCOs by Campaign and is no stranger to creative awards, winning tons of them, and has been judge and president of juries for Cannes, D&AD, The One Show, and numerous others. So after doing all of that, Matthew started a business called Solo Union that aimed to help clients crack the big idea platforms. And the reason I wanted to talk to you today, Matthew, is that that's morphed into a really interesting role for you, and that is your as a client's chief creative officer. So currently global chief creative advisor for AB InBev, chief creative advisor for Kraft Heinz, and for Live Kindly. So what I found interesting, and this is why I reached out to you the other day, was that AB InBev has been named Cannes Marketer of the Year for the second time in 2 consecutive years, for the first time ever.
Yep.
And I thought it's probably no coincidence that these companies are performing exceptionally well. I mean, AB InBev's had also ranked most effective marketer worldwide by Effies, number 1 creative marketer by WARC, and Kraft Heinz named 4th most innovative marketer in the USA. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the role that you're playing in the business, the impact that you feel someone of your experience can have within a brand organization, how it works and why you think it's so effective. So can you tell me a little bit about what you do and how it works?
Well, first of all, Gilly, you would know better than most that other people do all the work and I take all the credit. You know this, okay?
I have experience of it. Yeah,
you do. But look, it's first of all, thank you for chatting to me today. I greatly appreciate it. I always love talking about myself. No, I actually love talking about the business and what we do. It's been a real gift these last sort of 6-7 years, because I have the ability to, I guess, serve the not the industry, the profession I love, which is advertising, and I truly love it. I don't necessarily love the industry, as you and I both know. When holding companies take over places, the shift changes away from the product towards a profit. So what I've been able to do is I've been able to focus our teams all around the world, both at AB InBev and Kraft Heinz, on the product, which in many ways has been very liberating for the agencies that we work with as well. So ostensibly, my role hasn't really changed to the role I've had for many, many years, which is to try and create an environment in which people can create, be innovative, where they can feel liberated, where they can feel that their courage will be rewarded. It's quite an easy thing to say, but as you know, a very, very difficult thing to do. Interestingly, I think the big breakthrough for us at ABI has been, and obviously I have big input in this, but the truth about it is the bosses have to endorse it and they have to believe in it. But the big thing has been to get our marketing teams to actually be vulnerable, to trust themselves when it comes to their intuition about work, to be honest with each other about the work, to be honest with our creative partners about the work. I have this new shtick where I say, punch your creative partners in the nose, don't email them in the back.
I saw that in your bull bite. Yeah, interesting. And the point there is to give honest feedback, right?
Totally, but
tell it like
also,
it is.
And not to be emphatic about it. So to turn around and say to our agency partners, look, it doesn't feel right to me. I can't explain exactly why it doesn't feel right to me, but it's not setting me on fire. And the truth about great creative work is great creative work sets you on fire inside. And you'll feel the work straight away. And I get them to feel the work. So what are you feeling straight away?
So and is that what you mean by vulnerability? Like sort of sit with ambivalence or sit with discomfort?
Correct. Don't be embarrassed about being stupid. The cleverest people in the world are stupid.
Yeah.
Have absolute stupidity. And that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know So that's how you learn. And just that creates, you have to create an environment, right? And as I said, you have to be given permission by the leaders in that environment to be stupid, to ask questions, to not know the answer to things. Because creativity is all about exploration. It's all about questions, questions, questions. Many, many, many more questions until you get to answers. And you can't be in a world where you're asking questions, where you feel as though you've got to be the one that has all the answers. And many clients think their job is to have the answers. It's not. Your job is to ask the right questions. So that's been a great part of it for me across the board. Obviously, setting ambitions for the kind of work we want to do is essential. Having the trust of my teams around me to I guess, trust me that these ambitions are the right ambitions to have and achievable. Important. And this goes to the bosses of the organization, because if your bosses don't believe in the power of creativity to transform fortunes, you can forget about any creativity.
So there was one thing I wanted to ask you. Did that change happen before you got there? Has the pace of that change increased since they've experienced working in this way, and it's having good results for them? So
I would say that there was a great global CMO at ABI called Miguel Patricio. He came in and said, right, we're going to stop being this organization that's all about operational excellence, because we've bought everybody we bought. We've maxed out on that. So now we have to sweat the assets we have, and the assets we have are our brands. So we need to actually build these up, and we need to be innovative, and we need to be creative. And he pulled me in. So it was about 7-8 years ago with a couple of projects. And then I got involved 5 or 6 years ago with just global brands. And then it just grew and grew and grew from there. And it just caught, a great CMO in the US called Marcel Marcondes, who really pushed the US creative agenda, who's now a global CMO who I work with all the time. So they, I guess if you look at it, they had the vision for it, and they would bring somebody like me in to help implement the vision and maybe just sharpen it in certain areas, but they have the vision. And they have, most importantly, the belief in it. They believe in creativity. And now Miguel is the CEO of Kraft Heinz, and Miguel pulled me over to do the same job. And I was saying to someone yesterday, because Miguel is such a revered figure at AB InBev, they're comfortable with me working over at Kraft Heinz. So I have 2 children.
Right.
Whereas normally I would never be able to do that.
I saw there were 2 lovely quotes on your website, and I thought the one was this Pedro Earp, ex-global CMO for AB InBev. Before we get too bullish, believing our own bullshit, we call Matthew. Which I thought was kind of amusing.
I think what's great about that, and this is the truth about the lovely thing about it, is because I'm in this kind of unique position of not actually being an employee of these companies, but being an asset of these companies, they require that I'm brutally honest with them. Not just on the work, but also with them and how they're dealing with the work as well. So they liberate me to do that. And we've had conversations, and Pedro and I had conversations about, coming on board full-time and all these. Well, I am full-time, but I mean, coming on board literally as, an executive. And I just said, but then I'll become like you, and you want me to be like me. Because that gives them a sort of an inside-outside view of how, what they're doing, without just, becoming a voice like theirs. So Miguel always says, the most important thing about an organization is that when where you get into trouble is where the only voices you listen to are the voices that sound like yours. And so true. And of course, creativity, one of the difficulties is creative people don't sound like, in inverted commas, business people. And yet creative people are, and just look at all the great leaders from Phil Knight to Jobs, everyone, they're creative. So failing companies are companies that turn around and go, we just want to listen to the finance guys and the ops guys and the guys that get things done. Well, they get things done, but the things they're getting done are created by creative people. So
the things they're selling, absolutely. So do you sit in between? I mean, do you review the work, for example? So do you sit in, how do agencies react to you? I mean, they're probably used to you by now, but when you started working, how did they feel about you being like a gatekeeper or a
Well, I think
curator, or how do they see you?
I think it's evolved quite significantly. I mean, just to say, I also put processes in place, very
Yeah,
important.
I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah, so how did
I
that work?
put processes in place, strategic processes in place, because I so, as you know, believe in the power of strategy to propel creativity. I mean, you can't do great creative without great strategy. And you know, things that help our marketers judge creative work, because often they'll have intuition about work, but they won't be able to. So we've got scales at both companies where if it's 5, it's like okay. If it's 10, it's iconic, and in between. And they go, oh, I'm feeling this. Oh, it's a 7. Okay, that means
feeling a 7, or yeah. So you
exactly.
give them the language to articulate.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great.
Correct. So now, how do agencies react to me? Well,
Yeah.
it's initially with suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, it was a very new role in the world. So is Matthew like the consultant coming in to tell them to change the agencies? And I'm not a consultant. I'm an advisor. Advisors stick with, advisors go to work for you every single day. Consultants, like Bain and McKinsey and those other douchebags, they give you a document that they've given many other places and say, go and implement it. Whereas I'm part of implementing it. So I review all the work, the significant work, from strategy, from brand platforms, pretty much everything. I sit on the client side. The benefit I think agencies have seen, and I must say, a wonderful relationship with our agencies, is first of all, I truly appreciate them and their talent. And the difficulties that they go through. And I understand the world they're in, which allows me to translate that world to my side and explain that one of the big learnings for my teams has been creative people don't need time, they need space. Okay. In other words, give them the space to create great work. Don't harass them all the time. Liberate them from that. So that's been good. And then the other thing is I think because of my reputation and the fact that my agencies have always done pretty good work, in fact, very good work, they trust me, my judgment on the work. So I'm often the one that has to give them the real bad news, if it's real bad news about like a campaign. Like, for example, I can tell you this morning, I kiboshed a really big campaign that we've been working on for a year. And over the weekend, I just said, it's not good enough. So I've told the team today who agree with me, and now I've got to go and talk to the agency behind the scenes and talk to the leaders behind the scenes. And then it just makes it easier because it also makes agencies understand that we know that the difference between a great campaign and a bad campaign is a client. It's not an agency. Okay, we know this. But if you trust yourself as a client, you'll pick a great agency. Okay, you will pick a great agency. And our job as a client is to get the best out of that agency, with our tools, be they briefing, whatever, but also with our personality. So
I wanted to ask you about briefs. Do you also help, do you sort of review internally backwards, in terms of the briefs that are going to go out to the agencies? Do you sit there, because as an ex-creative and someone who's run creative agencies for years, how you feel when you see a brief that can go nowhere, or when you see a brief that's extraordinary.
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't say I'm great at it, because I think as a creative, one of the things is you get a brief and it takes you a while to discover whether the brief's good or bad. Okay. Because creative people, this is another thing that we learn, is that creative interrogates strategy. So often you can look at a strategy and say, oh, that looks really good, and start doing creative work, and then realize actually it's got holes in it, the strategy.
Definitely.
Sometimes it's also an excuse for creatives. You've got to get the balance there. But I by and large, I look at all the briefs. I always try and look at it and go, would I be excited about this brief? That's the only question I ask myself. And if the answer is no, then they go and redo it. And I must also say, Gilly, this is a really big thing for me. How I've been embraced by the marketing team and the business teams, that's been one of the most rewarding things of my career, because there's no cynicism. There's a real desire from everyone to do great work, to have their work loved. So you're not walking into, by and large, a hostile environment. I mean, there might be the odd person that wants to take all the glory. But this is like another big aspect of, I guess, if anyone wants to do this job in the future, you must view yourself. You know me very well. I always wanted to be the hero, right? I always wanted to be the guy in the lead, the charging for follow me. And, you know, I'm not like that at all now. I know you're falling off your chair, but it's true. I'm kind of at the place where...
Are your fingers crossed underneath the...
Yeah, exactly, legs sweeping. No, I'm at the place where I want to... I'm in a place in my life and whatever for the last few years where I just like to help people get up. So I'm not interested in anything at all when it comes to credit, fame, or all that's just not relevant to me. What's relevant to me is the joy of seeing all these people. Like Cannes last year was so amazing. I filmed our whole team going up on stage. They were calling me, come on. I said, no, this is the beauty, to film all of you.
Yeah.
The joy of clients.
Yeah.
Is just...
No, it's just
wonderful.
Amazing. So I remember when you and I chatted after the Cannes win for AB InBev, you said that they were once told they were the worst client in the world.
Yeah.
So do you think that shift was as a result of new leadership and this desire to kind of sweat the assets, or, you know, make them... It just seems to me that there are so many... The more the research comes out that creativity is effective, it seems there are so many companies that are just doing worse creative than ever. What do you think they're doing wrong? I mean, what is the sticking point? Is it belief? Is it inability to have the answers, as you say? What do you think's getting in the way?
Well, it's really difficult to be creative. It requires immense talent. It requires courage. It requires going against the norm. It requires being uncomfortable. There's your answer. You know, and one of the great disappointments in my life is watching Unilever become the marketing company of the world, to be pathetic at marketing now, because that's really what they are. Why? Because they've lost the courage to do it, not the belief, because it's all, you know, everyone pays lip service. So there are still many companies that are so that's why, because also creative, the creative is unquantifiable. So researchers, everyone knows, doesn't work when it comes to effectiveness of advertising. Otherwise, all advertising would be effective, because we don't research work at Kraft Heinz, and we research work minimally at ABI. That's another reason why we're successful about it.
What do you research? Do you research the idea, or what? At what stage do you research it?
We'll research so if we do research it, we'll research the logic of the idea. We will not research, is the creative work cool, everyone? Because it's impossible to do that. We will go, what we do as well was we put all our executed work into a system that Kantar have to talk about our brand power, which is how do our consumers respond towards it? Will they want to buy it? Do they desire it? Will they pay more for it? And that's our power score we have. But that's with executed work viewed by people as human beings, not as robots in research communities. So I do think, though, as I said, it's unquantifiable until it's quantifiable. In other words, until it's out there in the world. And then the other thing about creativity is it always requires a little bit of time. People forget that it took Apple a long time to be a famous, huge company with many, many different products until they got there. Exactly same, Nike, all great companies, Hewlett Packard, it takes time. And that's another part of it. So some CEOs and the like, don't have the patience for creativity because they work on quarters, and it's much,
Yeah,
you
the
know,
whole ROI, immediate kind of response,
Right.
return, etc.
and that's why you'll see guys, share prices booming up when the CEO says we're cutting costs, and the share price goes up. Because whereas great companies are about investing, they're investing in brands, investing in ideas, and investing in people. That's what they're all about. They're not about cutting. And creativity fundamentally is about investment. So that's why some people just don't have the courage to invest.
Yeah, it kind of drives me crazy because I mean, I saw James Herman's thing on creative commitment, and all of the work's been done. If you are an analytical marketer and you fear creativity, there is enough research that should put you at rest. But there's just, I think that area of the lack of vulnerability and fear is quite interesting.
And confidence, Julie, because if you and I, you know, walk into a gallery, walking around the gallery, and my knowledge of art is, let's say, minimal, and your knowledge of art is exceptional, and you look at a piece of art and go, wow, that's great, and I'm going,
what is it?
What the hell is it? It's a Basquiat. It's worth 20 million. What? It looks like a kid draw it. And that's because this is the thing about creativity. Creativity is something that you feel, right? Great brands are things that you feel. You don't go, that makes a lot of sense. Let me buy a Ferrari. You go, that makes me feel. So that means vulnerability. That means openness. And many people in business are afraid of that. And in fact, the cultures they work in are, you will wear a suit with a tie, you know, have your dress down to your ankles, all these sorts of things. You know, if you're a guy that likes wearing a dress, all these sorts of things happen. So that's it.
So the other quote that I liked off your website was by Miguel Patricio, who said, Matthew's been absolutely critical in improving our creative capabilities. He's made us more strategic, more courageous, bolder, and more connected with culture. So, and he said, you know, you've been an essential part in our journey to build a culture of creativity. I mean, I think one of the things is that creativity doesn't just live in the advertising space. It goes right through the business. So have you seen that in the businesses that you work with? Have they, in terms of product innovation or just general creative culture, how has that changed?
Yeah, in fact, that's my job, actually. My job is to help transform the company. Now, what do I do? I score goals, let's say. But I can't score the goals without everybody feeding me the ball and doing all these sorts of things. And that's why it's total company. Yeah. So, but Miguel and I know that the best way of really getting it is with a marketing campaign, because a marketing campaign has a relationship with consumers even beyond the product. So if the consumers are in love with your marketing and they love your marketing, everybody else in the organization is going, I want a piece of that. Oh, our product innovation at ABI is great. Our product innovation at Kraft Heinz is unbelievable. When you see some of the things we're doing from, you know, even tiny little special editions.
I saw was it Absolute, the pasta sauce?
This thing, yes.
Yes, there you go. I love it. It's so beautiful. Look at that.
Oh, that's great. It's beautiful. So yeah, all these little things are amazing and so rewarding for everyone. So it's total company. And you know, we had an incident with Budweiser in Qatar last year where our beer was banned from. I was with Marcel, the global CMO, actually with lunch with Miguel. That's all I do, lunch and dinner. And we got the phone. Changed. Nothing's changed. I don't drink as much though. We got the phone call there. He got the phone call saying Qataris have banned us selling liquor. And so we went, oh my God. And we millions of bottles and cans of Budweiser. What we were going to do with them. So we had to bring home the Bud. We put together this huge big promotion. We got crates, like big, you know, containers flown into the countries that were in the last 16, and whoever won, we were going to fly.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Total company. So in other words, creatively, the marketing team had the idea. impossible to do without total company, distribution, manufacturing, you name it, we did the whole thing. That's a now that won't happen in a company that doesn't believe in creativity, doesn't see the benefit. And you know, if you look at the results of both Kraft Heinz and AB InBev since the creative forces started, we just like this, you know.
Fantastic.
You know, I mean, we're going to go, we all know we're going through a very tough, you know, probably next 6 months. So, but we've got the power of creativity behind us. And, you know, we'll win where others don't because of that.
So what's the work that you've been the most proud of?
Oh, wow. I think the work that makes me most proud is one brands that people have given up on, where they go, let's maintain it into the grave, maximize it. So that's probably a bit of a harsh statement to make, but for example, you could take Velveeta, which is a processed cheese here in America that was dusty, is now probably one of the coolest brands in America. We had a campaign called the Dolce Velveeta. We've got a campaign. We do the wildest things. It is such cool work. Everyone writes about it. Everybody loves it.
That's cool.
So that I'm really proud of. Oscar Mayer, really proud of. Like taking particularly Kraft Heinz brands that were you know, underserved really from a marketing point of view, but also from a product point of view, that were old-fashioned, because a lot of it's, you know, old-fashioned food, and then just to transform those, that's been great.
Yeah.
AB InBev, Corona, you know, just the Corona work we do. I'm just so proud of the work. I'm proud of. We've got such a great team. Yeah. This is a campaign actually that Marcel started years and years ago. So it's actually quite nice that as he's now up here, to see all of the fruits of the really strong strategy and a strong core platform come up. You know, Budweiser, hard brand to just see the amazing work that's coming out of it. And then Michelob Ultra. You know, we do incredible work for Michelob Ultra. That, you know, that's, remember, you've got a light beer. It's a lifestyle sports beer. Beer in the sports world is amazing, very techy. And, you know, that's, again, the most creative brand in two most creative brands, the most creatively rewarded campaigns and work of Corona and Michelob Ultra. Which are the two best performing businesses? Corona and Michelob Ultra. It is not a coincidence.
I was watching a talk that Marcel gave at the IMC conference here, and he was showing some of the Michelob Ultra work that was done during COVID, when sports came back in, and it's beautiful work. It's so emotive, and a lot of the work that he showed was incredibly emotive. And I don't know if it was just during COVID that it was like that, but I mean, is that something that they do usually kind of?
No, I think, like I said, creativity is about feeling, right? So we understand the power of emotion and all our brands. And, you know, it's relationships are emotional things, and people have relationships with brands. Therefore, you need to continually, you know, get some emotion in that relationship. So we're really careful about doing that across all our brands. And as you know, it's more powerful than logic. So, you know, we know how to do it.
So last question, what advice would you give to your younger self as a ECD?
Don't be such a dick.
Knowing what you know now about what life is like inside the brand world.
You know, I would try and, one of the things that, so if you ask me from a business point of view and agency point of view, I think what was great, Gilly, is that I think we always went to work to make great work. Okay, that was really powerful. I think that my advice, and I don't think we ever were silly as a business. You know, I don't think we obviously wanted our work to be bought, but we were never selly. And I would even be less selling, because one of the things that really drives me mad is when agencies come in and try and sell work to us. Now, we make work with agencies. We don't buy work from agencies. We make work with them. So don't come in and sell me something, particularly as you can imagine, to me,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't sell work to, and this is good marketers, you can't sell work to, they make it for you. So with that knowledge, I would do different things. And the other thing is, you know, for people out there in the advertising business, unfortunately, pitches are still part of the shtick. We don't do pitches at Kraft Heinz, and we do very, very few at ABI. And if we do them, we pay because we want to value what we get. But here's the big thing for all your agency people and all your clients that you work with as well. The problem with pitches is agencies give you what they think you want. And we've heard this want need thing all the time, but in a pitch, it's so apparent. They give you what they think you want, not what they think you need.
What's going to win the business? Yeah.
So, oh, Matthew, quite like that word pleasure. Let's make sure the word, I promise you, it literally is as little as that. And, oh, you know, so the CMO, he likes windsurfing. Let's try and build windsurfing. It just becomes selling. And it never works. And and I'm sure any agency person and any marketing person will tell you, I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of pitches. The work never, ever, ever runs. Ever. Never. I've never seen a campaign where it's run. And we in pitches, great example, we did a pitch on Oscar Mayer. This is as I first started getting involved with Kraft Heinz. So I arrived mid-pitch. I added an agency or two on, saw the pitches. All the work was really good and really great. We chose the agency that did the worst work. Why? Because we saw them, we liked working with them when we saw the work they'd done, and we knew we'd do great work going forward. It was Johannes Leonardo, by the way, which is
fantastic. Yeah.
And we were right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember years ago, our mutual client at Unilever, Gail Clintworth, said to me she feels weird that she's expected to buy something and that we're selling something to her because we're part of a team that's making something. So that's exactly that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and the most distasteful part of the business is the new business part of it. I always say that the best new business people are deeply shallow. And there's just an insincerity about it kind of feels wrong, and I think as a marketer you should be insulted by that. And if you're insulted by that, then don't pitch, okay? Because we need to make jobs like that obsolete. I'm sorry to say that, because most of them are really smart strategic people. They get put into new business because they've got the gift of the gab. Actually they should be doing the work. So I really hope that pitching becomes a thing of the past as we go. And just, rewinding a little to something you said about your disappointment in the quality of work was happening. You are, but I am definitely seeing, because of our success as a huge company, and also Kraft Heinz success, certainly in America or global companies, more and more and more of them are going, like Pepsi, great example. I know they're transforming the business, really pushing it. There's lots of them, and I'm getting more and more people at big companies to talking to me for guidance on what did we do at AB InBev and Kraft Heinz, how can they change it. So I'm pretty positive that the wave will continue to change. And we use independent agencies by and large, unless we have a person at a holding company agency that we like. And we do that because we know they go to work, they take work personally, they take what they do personally, and they go to work for the product. Whereas, of course, as I said earlier on, holding company businesses, talented people, great people, often compromised by their ownership structure. And we know all this as a business.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said it at the beginning, it's profit, not product. And it's not ultimately what we sell. So it's a self-defeating long-term strategy. So yeah. Right. But thanks for that. That's really insightful and interesting. And I really hope many, many more take your lead. And
me too.
Yeah,
me too. And me too. And I will say I hope there are many, many more creative marketers, because there was a time where, you know, a lot of CMOs were people that were not creative people, or didn't appreciate creativity and didn't fundamentally believe in creativity. But I think that's changed. I think that's changing. I think there's a real place for the innovative CMO. The most famous CMOs in the world, Fernando Machado and Marcel, you know, are you know, creative people. So I hope to see more of it.
Yeah. Me too. Okay, one last question. I did say the last one was the last one, but do you think the kind of always on the filling the digital landfill, as Sir John Hegarty calls it, do you think that takes people's eyes off creativity and the big idea that they're just so focused on filling this hose pipe of content, that it removes them from that space you were talking about, because it's so much pressure, so much sort of everything's got to be done now, and there's a million iterations of each thing.
Totally. I mean, look, you know, we've all met that person at the dinner party that can't keep quiet and yet has nothing to say. You know, brands that can't keep quiet but have nothing to say are a problem. They're all reactive brands. They don't have proper strategy. We are really careful about our strategies. We're really careful about what we say and where we say it. So media is still a bit of a blunt instrument for a lot of media companies, but slowly but surely people are understanding that, you know, you are ways to reach people and places to reach people appropriately. As an example, so we still do a lot of TV in America on beer. Why? Because of sports on TV. You know, Kraft Heinz, we don't do a lot of TV. Why? Because we're in the food business and obviously the beverage business, and our target market are on their phones or on their iPads. That's where they are. They are not watching TV, and if they are watching TV, they're watching streaming. So it's, you know, you've got to really understand that. But certainly, I do think it's changing. I do think it's being more targeted. I think media companies have tried to sell things like media impressions being, it's nonsense. All that stuff is nonsense. If you put a post out and you've got a million impressions, it probably means 4 people have watched it.
Yeah.
You know, all this sort of stuff. And
lots of robots, though. That's the great thing, because
lots of robots.
Robots love cream cheese.
They love cream cheese. Yeah. So look, but it's again, it's evolving, it's changing, it's hopefully going to become more sophisticated in time to come.
Good. Great news. Thank you, Matthew.
Right,
you
Gilly.
have a fabulous day, and we'll.
My great pleasure, and I love the school of thought. So
thank
strength
you.
to strength.
Thank you. Awesome.
Take care. Thanks. Bye.